In this video lesson, we're going to talk about optimizing your horse's diet and specifically looking at protein and energy. Now, we're going to kick it off showing you an example diet of feeding a horse on maintenance with a nutrient dense hay. Now, when we say maintenance, that is a horse that needs the protein and energy just to keep their body system running regularly and then some voluntary exercise. Now, when we talk about a nutrient dense hay, that's a mixed hay. So you might have a legume grass mix, or it's an immature grass hay, that young forage. And in this example, you can see that's a 13% crude protein and 30% ADF. So not as fibrous as some of our other forages. Now, when you look at that, you can see the protein is almost upwards of 200% of what that horse needs each day. And then the calories are well above 100%. So we are definitely feeding this horse in excess. Now, nutrient dense hays are nice because they're highly palatable. They taste good for the horse and they're easily digested. But we have to look at those protein and calories and go, okay, is this horse getting too much? Because if they are, they get that excess energy or calories in their diet and they're going to put on weight and they're going to get above that ideal body condition score of 5. Also, with protein, too much in the diet. Have you ever noticed when you walk into a stall and you just get hit with that ammonia smell? Like, wow, it's really pungent. That could mean there might be too much protein in the diet. And it does put some pressure on the horse's body to remove that excess urea. And more ammonia in the air could lead to respiratory issues in our stabled horses. So it is a concern and is something that we need to look at. Now, here are some options you could consider when you're trying to reduce the high levels of protein and that excess calories in the diet. The first thing you can look at is possibly either reducing or eliminating pasture access for your horse because that forage is high in protein and high in energy. So you could put your horse on a dry lot and feed him hay there. Or if you're going to put your horse out on pasture, you want to ensure they have a grazing muzzle the entire time they're out there, and that will help limit their intake. Now, when using grazing muzzles, it's important to remember the horse needs it on the entire time they're out on pasture, because if you do take it off, they will go and they tend to eat a lot to compensate for the times that you're limiting their intake. So that's one option. Another option is you could add upwards of 20% of their forage as straw. And when you look at the drop in protein and calories, say from that nutrient dense hay that you're mixing in this straw with it, it drops that total protein and the overall calories. Now, you want to mix the straw together, and it's ideal to put it into a hay net so the horse can't select out the parts it wants and it's eating all of its forage. Now, another option is to ration the amount of hay that you might be giving to your horse. So, an example, say you're giving 2%, you could drop that down to 1.5% or 1.25%. But it is important to remember it is highly recommended that you use a slow feeder to keep those feeding times long so we keep that constant trickle of forage in that horse's digestive system. But when we look at that and compare it to the nutrient dense hay, the straw, and then rationed, you can see where we get even more drop in the overall protein and those total calories that that horse is getting each and every day. And then another option is you could soak the hay to reduce the amount of sugars that the horse is getting in that forage. Now, the recommendation is to soak it in either 30 minutes in warm water or 60 minutes in cold water. Now, you want to avoid extending or soaking hay past those time points because it does reduce the palatability, could encourage mold growth. So, you want to feed it after you're done soaking. Now, the next part of this is okay, that was looking at excesses. What about deficiencies? What if you need more energy or you need more protein in your horse's diet? So, here's some things to consider. Now, we're going back to that mature horse, but now we're looking at moderate work Whereas in the previous example, we were just looking at a horse on maintenance. Now, when we introduce moderate work, exercise, competition, the horse is going to need more protein and more energy in its diet. So let's look at the different forage options that you may have and how that stacks up with protein and calories. So we start at the top with mature hay that is 7% crude protein, 45% ADF. So it's more fibrous, and that's your mature grass hay. Then we can drop down to your average hays. So when you're looking at that, that actually increases the crude protein and reduces the amount of fiber. So this could be a mixed hay, but it's your mid-maturity grass hay. Then when you get in that nutrient dense hay, so you're looking at your legumes like alfalfa or a good mix or that low maturity grass hay, that crude protein increases again. And then that ADF is about the same as your average hay. Then when you look at your grass pastures, this they tend to have high crude protein, so 16% in this example, and then less fiber, so that 32% ADF. Now, when we look at the protein and calories side by side, you can see the differences. So as we go from mature hay, which has lower crude protein, we increase as we get up to the grass pasture. And then the calories, you can see where the mature hay and average hay might not be meeting those horses' energy requirements, where a nutrient dense hay and pastures just above that 100% mark. And again, it's going to probably depend on the horse, but you can see just those differences in the forages. So, some questions you may want to ask if you're in this situation is, can the horse get more access to pasture so they'll eat more and get that higher quality forage? Is their hay intake maximized? So in that situation, are you rationing their hay? So for example, you're feeding 10 kilograms or 22 pounds per day. Could you just give them free choice, as much hay as they want all day? And is their digestive health optimized? So all things to consider when you are looking at these deficiencies. Now we'll look at some different options for energy, protein, and then both energy and protein. So if we want to just increase energy, here's some good alternatives you can add to the diet for the horse that will help increase those calories. So you can add things like highly fermentable fiber, fats, and even things like oats or ground whole flax that are highly digestible in the small intestine that will increase the calories in that horse's diet, and you can still maintain them on their forage. If you're specifically looking at protein, you can add things like soybean meal, canola meal, or flax meal to the ration that will do that for you. And then if you need to increase both, then you can look at whole roasted soybeans, alfalfa cubes or pellets, or dried distillers grains. And I'm going to give you some examples of this. But if you add that to the diet, you're increasing not only the protein, but also the calories and energy in the horse's diet. So let's look at an example. Here we have that horse in moderate work on that mature hay. And let's say you can't change your hay quality, and that's typical for a lot of boarding facilities. So the mature hay, they're getting as much as they want to eat all day at free choice. We're going to add that whole roasted soybeans because that's going to increase both energy and protein. Then we're going to add oil to give a little bit of boost to that energy. We always want to add our vitamin mineral supplement and then that salt to cover the sodium and then also encourage drinking. And then when you look at that versus the requirement, so the protein, we're just maybe meeting their requirement, maybe a little bit over. When we add those roasted soybeans, you can see we are definitely meeting their protein requirement. And then when we add the roasted soybeans and oil, we are getting above that 100% of their energy requirements. Now, let's give you another example. You can go from that mature hay to say you have an average hay. So free choice as much as that horse wants to eat all day. So our protein's fine. It's that energy we're a little bit concerned with. We need just a little boost so that horse won't drop weight and can maintain that good body condition. So we maintain average hay free choice. We add the oats, again, highly digestible in the small intestine. So 1.6 pounds or 750 grams. Add that oil, that vitamin mineral supplement, and the sodium. And you can see where we make that change, the protein doesn't change because we didn't add a protein supplement. But then we also have the calories. Those calories do boost over that 100%. And that's where we want to be. Now, the final and most critical part of this is whenever you change a horse's diet, you want to do it slowly. And general guidance is you want to do this over about 3 weeks. You can do it in about 15, 16 days. And in this example, what you would want to do is when you do transition the diet, day 1 through day 5 or up to day 7, depends on what you want to do. But 5 to 7 days is about the recommendation. Is feed 75% of the current diet what you're currently feeding them, and then 25% introduce that new hay or new feeds that you're adding. Then the second week or days 6 through 10, you feed 50 50, 50% of the old diet, 50% of the new diet. And then either days 11 and 15 or week 3, you do 25% of the old diet and then 75% of the new diet. And then by day 16 or day 21, if you do it over 3 weeks, 100% of the new diet. That gives the horse's digestive system enough time to adjust to the feeds you're adding. So, in summary, when you're looking at deficiencies and excesses, there's simple changes you can make and you can meet your horse's calorie and energy needs. So, look for the next video lesson. We're going to keep this discussion going. Take care.